Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 5 Tips and Tricks for Careers in Athletics. I'm your host, Dr. Maury Masowicz, with my all-time best, most favorite of all-time co-host, Jen Albanese. Hey, Jen.
Hi, Maury. How are you today?
I'm super excited. We have Anne-Marie Guglieri, who is one of my most favorite people in college athletics. Just a mentor of mine, someone that I have known for a long time. I think I was going back my first ever site rep when I was overseeing hosting a tournament.
Oh, that's so cool. I'm excited. I've never met her, so I'm excited to get a chance to chat with her and learn from her. I've heard nothing but amazing things about her. So
she's the best. So I'm so glad we get to have her on and share with people. But it made me want to reflect on hosting tournaments and that whole process, because
some of our favorite times, Maury.
Absolutely. And if you know tournaments, especially basketball, you know that Jen is the cheer and band coordinator for all major tournaments at our institution.
The queen.
She is that number one contact for all of you cheer coaches and band directors out there when you are coming to our venue.
I love them all with all my heart, especially my cheer coach, but I love them with all my heart.
I have no problem assigning you that job and saying I look forward to hearing about everything after the tournament, because I never really have to talk to Jen about issues with her group. It's usually the one place that I don't get to hear stuff. Jen usually fixes their storage area before I even know about it, or move them into their place. The only thing I've ever heard from you is you almost gotten into it with a band director who was playing when they weren't supposed to, or standing up. I can't remember.
Standing up outside of the band corral. So there's lots of rules and stuff, especially with an NCAA tournament. So obviously we're very familiar in the venue that we work, but then you're hosting this event.
And they put more rules on top of it.
And the venue is so different. It's changed from what you're used to. You don't have the same access. You can't walk in the same areas. You only have certain credentialed spaces. And if anybody's ever been to an NCAA basketball tournament, there's the band corrals where the band has to sit, and where the cheerleaders and the dance team have to be, and where the media has to
go. You have to move them all around at certain times during certain periods. No one can move it.
And usually games are back to back, so you're transitioning from one, band and cheer team to the next band and cheer team. So there was one band director, I'm not going to say from what school, and we had to ask him numerous times to stay in the band corral to conduct the band, and he wouldn't listen. So I had to call
vividly
over
remember you
Maury.
Going after this band director and being you need to deal with this guy. I was that's very unusual. I don't ever get asked about anything.
Most of them, again, have done it before. These teams go to tournaments all the time, so they understand the rules, and postseason is obviously different than the regular season game. And Maury is he ran the whole show. He
was the tournament manager for that one.
Tournament manager, big time, so huge. And I didn't want to bother him. I felt so bad.
I just remember my thought is that this person thinks that everyone is not here for this basketball game, but to see the band, and particularly him. When I was having the conversation, I was this is not about this game right now, which was a very weird conversation.
Right. But they're really fun, though, because you get to experience things differently. And it's not even the basketball ones. We've hosted, field hockey and men's soccer. I just remember the men's soccer ones with the snow. Oh, right. And how cold it was. Oh,
it's
my God.
Crazy. And honestly, in one of our venues, we do graduation, and then we have to turn it right over within hours that night to host a tournament for lacrosse often. And there's a lot of people that I can thank for having taught and I learned from about this. But Anne-Marie, who's on the podcast today, is one of those people that has taught me so much about how do you deal with NCAA hosting. The site rep is the person that connects you with the NCAA and gives you permissions or tells you direction from them. So and she was so knowledgeable on her own without even that whole process. So just really looking forward to getting to hear from her and catching up. So
absolutely,
it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I'm excited. This will be great. So
well, let's get right to Anne-Marie. So we'll see everyone after this break.
Are you a loyal 5 Tips and Tricks podcast listener? If not, now is the time to start. Get all your info and fun content on the podcast by following us on all our social channels at @AthCareerPod. The 5 Tips and Tricks podcast is a part of Athletic Career Consulting. Make sure to reach out to us. The one-stop shop for everything is our website, www.athcareer.com. Remember, follow and like us on @AthCareerPod, rate and review us, and get all your info at www.athcareer.com. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Maury, would you like to introduce our guest today?
Absolutely. Our guest journey in college athletics is truly impressive, starting with her education at Syracuse, where she earned her bachelor's degree in 2004 and was a 3-year starter on the field hockey team. In 2006, she went on to earn her master's degree in education with a concentration in athletic administration from Springfield College. During her time there, she served as an associate coach for the field hockey team and helped lead them to 2 conference championships. This woman's career in athletics took off at Colgate University, where she spent 10 years in a variety of roles, ultimately serving as chief of staff and senior associate athletic director. At Colgate, she oversaw the construction of over $43 million in capital projects, including a state-of-the-art ice hockey arena and a new soccer lacrosse complex. In 2018, she joined Yale Athletics Department, where she was promoted to executive deputy director and chief operations officer just 4 years later. In her current role, she leads the organization's workflow strategy for all areas of the department, from finances and human resources to capital projects and facilities. She also supervises football, women's basketball, heavyweight crew, and softball. She's chaired the NCAA Division I Lacrosse Committee in 2013 and 14, played a significant role in shaping the landscape of the sport at the college level. In recognition of her outstanding contributions to college athletics, she received the Nell Jackson Administrator of the Year Award in 2014 for women's leaders in college sports. She also has been a sought-after speaker, presenting at national conferences like NACDA and Women's Leader in College Sports. Very pleased to have join us today, Anne-Marie Guglieri. Welcome, Anne-Marie.
Thank you guys so much. I've never had quite an intro like that, so I need you as my hype person, Maury, every day.
I honestly had to edit it down. I was like, I feel really so bad, but I'm gonna have to cut stuff off of Anne-Marie's bio. And knowing you, I was like, I don't want to leave anything out, but I was like, I could be doing this for the whole episode.
I'm gonna call you tomorrow morning. I want you to do that again and pump me up.
Listen, I will any day. If you call, I will pick up the phone.
No, I'm so happy to be here with you guys. Thanks for this invite.
Yeah. we were telling before, you were at the top of my list. I remember our first meeting. I was very early on in my career and was hosting an event, and you were the site supervisor. And from that on, I was like, this is the person I need to talk to about things. And I've always reached out from then.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is the feeling was so mutual. You always remember the people who do their job really, really well. And you're like, that's the guy. That's the guy I need the answers with,
And I'm just so fortunate because we bump paths all the time. Besides, I reach out to you every once in a while for advice.
Yeah.
But we were always you're either competing up here or we're doing something with our sports where we're interchanged with Syracuse and Yale. So I'm just so happy. Or you're up here for alumni events and recognized. So I'm very happy to have the connection.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's one of those good things about the business. When you run into good people, you keep running into them.
Yeah. So thanks so much for this.
This is great. Looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely.
We want to hear all your good tips and tricks. So let's start off with number 1.
Yeah, no, thanks guys. As I was thinking about this, they actually are all pretty simple, but I think really have served me well through my career. The first one, honestly, is just, do your job and do it really, really well. I think there's so many people now that are always looking for, if I'm an assistant AD, how do I get to be associate AD? If I'm an associate AD, how do I be a senior associate AD? And asking for those promotions are not the way I've ever promoted anybody. It's the guy or gal who does their job really, really well, keeps their area really, really tight, is the one who ends up getting the promotion. And I think that we don't take that as seriously as we should. We're always sort of thinking about what's the next step. And I think when you master the step that you are in, everything else will sort of work itself out for you. And those are the people that are noticed is when their area is just so tight,
I love that. It's funny, Maury and I have talked about that a couple of times. And, again, it's great to have career goals and where you want to go and that kind of stuff. But you got to be able to do what you do right now and live in the present and do the best that you can there. Because that's just going to prove yourself. You're going to prove yourself that you can take on that extra responsibility, the more leadership type roles. So people forget about that. I think, and even in higher up positions too, forget about like, be good in what you're doing currently. So.
Yeah, you are so right. And I think often, be careful when you're asking for more, make sure you can do the more, right? Because that's a very easy way for someone to say you're not doing your job well, is because you're spreading yourself too thin, so do the small really well first.
I feel like the times that I've jumped up in my career, it's always been connected to, hey, you were asked to do something that you weren't normally, and you took that on, and then it really became successful. And it's like, okay, well, we'd like you now to jump up and do this. And it wasn't because I was like, okay, well, now I need to get into this position.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think what we forget too is, what got you in this job is not going to get you to the next job, because the next job has a different level of responsibility, you know?
Correct.
So you may have a masterful checklist right now, but your next job is actually overseeing people versus things, right? So don't lose the experiences in your current job,
Right. You got to
take those with you.
It's got to build on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Great
That's
tip.
A good one.
Great tip.
That's a good one.
Okay. Tip or trick number 2.
Number 2, I think don't let the highs be too high and don't let the lows be too low. We are in a very emotional business in college athletics. There's certainly the win-loss aspect to it, and that's high and that's low, but there's also the aspects of hiring people and firing people. And those two can equally be highs and lows. And I think, we're in one of the professions where everyone else thinks that they can do it. And so there's a lot of opinions coming our way. And I think if you ride those highs and you ride those lows, your career is going to be very, very short in this business,
I know that you've hired a lot of coaching staff members and looking for head coaches, and coaches are, I guess, known for their passion.
Yeah.
So usually that kind of follows through. How do you sort through a coach and know that they're going to be able to ride the highs and lows, or someone that wants to go into coaching? Because a lot of times it's looked as a positive that they're really fiery or have all these things, but at the same time, people forget that they have to be kind of pseudo administrators off the court or the field. So how do you, as someone that's hired coaches frequently, look at that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Maury. I think passion is one thing. I think manic is another. Right. And when you hire head coaches, a lot of what I look for is I look at old YouTube press conferences. I look at, social media now, where you can see their press conferences and you can see their interviews. And I think you can see through that really well. You can see emotion in glimpses, and you can see people getting passionate and fired up. But how quickly do they then revert back? Or does that manic take them a full half or a full quarter? Right. And I think, it's easy to preach to student athletes to sort of stay the course, but they're watching everything you do. And in that sense, the coaches are watching what your administrators are doing, So if you get really, really high, you are going to feel really, really low very quickly. The more that you smooth out those bumps, I think it's better for your staff. It's better for those around you. And I think that's the differentiation you have to make. Is it manic or is it passion?
Yeah.
I loved that you said that everybody thinks they can do this job, because that is something that I deal with a lot. And from a game day presentation type of a thing, and that has been one of the biggest challenges in my career, is trying to separate that, being able to take everything people say with a grain of salt and understand yes, I know what I'm doing. I have the confidence in myself. I have the experience, because it can be really hard to sit in a room and have people tell you should do this and do that and do it this way and play this song and do that. That's hard. It's hard.
Absolutely. Have you ever heard, hey, have you ever thought of this? Have you ever thought about giving t-shirts out? It's that's actually wonderful.
No.
I never thought of that. Right.
I've never heard of t-shirts being a great giveaway. Oh my God.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So it's tough.
Yeah, it really is. And honestly, I'll say that's my third one, right? To dovetail into that. Perfect. You have to shut out the white noise, and that is all white noise. I would say when I was younger in my career, every email that sort of came across like that, I wrote that email. I got really, really upset at it, right? And I'd fire away this email, and then I'd delete it, and then I'd fire away again. And now I just delete it, right? Now, not to say I delete every email that has negative connotations to it or anything like that. Of course not. That's not what I mean. But I mean, you have to be able to respond without taking that to heart. Your biggest fans are your biggest enemies the next day. You only really do good jobs if you win big games. And we all know that's not true. So I think the people that can compartmentalize and shut out that white noise and also understand what is the white noise, because sometimes, you're hearing Nate.
Just going to ask you that question because I know so many people that are like, every email is the most important thing and especially like you talk about fans, like one email comes in that's reflecting of one person, but sometimes I feel like people push that across like, well, our whole fan base feels this way. And I'm like, well, that's one person's opinion. How do we differentiate that idea?
Right.
Exactly. And, it's all about themes, right? I think of, surveying student athletes, right? Exit interviews, things of that nature.
Yes.
When you see a theme, okay, maybe I'm going to give it some credence, but when I see one person say one thing, that opinion is not representative. And I think you have to be mature enough to know if that's the case or not. And that's not to say that anytime someone says something negative, there may not be some truth to it, right? There may not be a story behind it that you can use to get better. But I think if you just go in every single direction that people are trying to pull you in, that is what's most difficult. I see that a lot of times too when people are looking for career advice and they say, everyone thinks I should go here, everyone thinks I should go there. Right. It's like, but you have to think what you want, right? You can take advice, but you have to sort of parse out what is the advice that's best for you as opposed to what sort of this general idea of what everyone thinks you should do is,
Yeah. To put it a little bit farther, maybe put you on the spot. Like I've seen you deal with a lot of people and you're really good at going through the white noise, but you still make people feel heard and not feel like they were ignored. And
I appreciate that, Maury.
How do you navigate that process? Because like you said, there's all this white noise and people want your attention. And sometimes you can't, it's not,
give it.
You can't
give
what they want.
Right.
But you still want to make them feel valid. Like, how do you work through that process?
Yeah, it's true. I think one piece of it is, you got to take it from the source, right? Oftentimes, most people aren't coming from a negative place, right? The t-shirt person who thinks we've never thought of the t-shirts probably thinks we've never thought of the t-shirts, right? But they also haven't been in this, business for 25 years like we have.
Right.
So I think there's that piece of it, right? I think there's also the piece of, lose your temper, lose the argument kind of thing, and when you lose your temper, you've kind of lost the argument,
Right. I love that. I need to get that put up in the office. Lose your temper, lose the argument. That is
totally.
That's the quote right there.
That's right. And your point can get lost really quickly, even when your point is right.
Right.
When you do that, and then lastly, to that point, Maury, I think how I separate the white noise is, my mom used to say this to me all the time. If you would not take advice from this person, do not take their criticism, and that has served me well for a lot of years. If I will not take advice from you, I will not take your criticism,
That's a good point.
And if I will take your advice, I'm definitely going to take your criticism. So it goes both ways,
Right. No, that's awesome.
You have to be able to take the criticism and understand it and know, like you said, people are 99% of the time coming from a good place.
Yeah.
And I think it also is about how it's delivered too.
Totally.
Like if it's, again, Maury and I have had these conversations where I've come to his office oh my God. But it's how things are delivered makes the impact too. And I think I try to do that as a leader with my team.
Yeah.
Like how you deliver that feedback. And it's not you stink at that or you're not really good at that.
Yeah,
or you
you're
did
so
a bad
right.
job. How do we collaborate and make it better? As opposed to the negative side of it. We can always get better. Nothing is ever going to be perfect. We can always improve on what we're doing. But I think it's how you take that criticism and how that feedback is coming across.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And I was thinking even for if we're looking at this from the spin of a younger staff member that's looking at what to do, coming into like if you have questions for a supervisor, someone that you work with, and not coming with an attitude that is like a negative attitude, and like it kind of goes both ways,
like know it all type of an
so
attitude.
true.
Yeah.
Or that you're just coming out frustrated from the benchmark because you've put yourself in this tailspin of something. Like how do you frame it in a way to have a dialogue and not just project your frustration on that supervisor, because they're thinking about your feelings more than they're thinking about the issue is one of the things I've always thought about. Like, it should be about the topic and not about you as a person. And then I think I always am looking as, okay, are people okay? But if you can help them get to the issue and then, you know, address their personal concerns, like that kind of makes it better. So I don't know if I off topic, but I feel like that's like the same thing.
Yeah. I think you both are so spot on. You know, I also think you guys are right, because if you're not giving, it means you care about them because you're having that hard conversation, right? It's so much easier these days to just not give criticism, good or bad, because it's just easier. And I think the employees you truly care about, the supervisors are talking and having those conversations with you because they want you to get better.
Right.
It's a lot easier for everybody to just either move you on or not, you know, engage in your growth and things of that nature. But that's where it's key. It's about the people, you know?
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay. Number 4, Jen.
Number 4,
I always lose track. Jen's my
I don't have more than 5. So
Number 4.
You know, the fourth one I'd say is manage up. It's such an important topic and skill, I think, to master when you are early on in your career. And, you know, it's the ability to anticipate what your boss needs, right? And I think it's key to know you will always have a boss, right? You know, I think everyone thinks if I become the athletic director, I'm not going to have a boss. The higher up you go, the more bosses you typically have sometimes, you know? And it's, I think, this understanding that the person above you is always busier. They are always busier than you, and they are dealing with things that you just have no concept of what they're dealing with. So we're getting negative emails. The person above us is getting even more negative emails. And I think, you know, it kind of ties into just do your job really well, is if you are anticipating what you can take off their plate before they ask you that question of what you can take off their plate, that is absolutely key. You know, I always remember this example. One of my staff members had said to me, you know, can I do anything for you? And one of those questions is great, of course, but you're thinking, oh, what can they do for me? I'm so busy. What are the things they can do?
You don't have a list in your head of like, these are all the things I need you to do.
Absolutely. Exactly. As opposed to just sort of seeing what you're working on and thinking they're probably going to need this as a next step. Let me get ahead of that and do it. You know, Lee Woodruff wrote this really great book that I read a lot of years ago. She was a Colgate grad. And she said, you know, when someone suffers a loss in their family, don't ask them what they need. Just bring them dinner. Right. Just go take out the trash for them, you know?
Exactly.
Don't add another decision to their plate. And that, I think, is managing up, you know?
I think about, like, I'm in my inbox and I'm reading something, and then the next email is one of our staff members that already took care of the issue, and that's like, oh, thank you. Like,
I love you.
That's like the best thing. Like, I didn't have to respond to that. We didn't have to get into this whole thing. And then, especially when they answer it in a way that's like so like succinct and gets the job done, I'm like, oh, I've trained them well. I can keep moving on. Like,
exactly. And Maury, what did they do? They did their job. Right.
Wow.
They did their job. Exactly.
Well,
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
And it's just another email I don't need to answer, and another like possibility. Now on the flip side, if they answer it and it's not right, then you start going like, oh, let's just have a quick conversation about this, and maybe it did add a little bit, but there's luckily more times than not it was a good way to answer it, and you're like, oh, this is the best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. And I think for like Maury said earlier, but for younger staff with that, it's good for them to start doing that right off the bat.
Yeah.
Because then again, it's proving themselves. It's going back to all your other tips of like doing your job really well. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and then you're standing out and you're able to look to, you know, go in a different direction in your career. Like, so it's the simple things, like you said, it's simple, but it's very impactful.
Well, it shows that they're paying attention too, because how often it's like, okay, a lot of, I think we're all on the same page. Like a lot of how we've learned is through engaging with people that have done it really well before us and learning from them and learning traits and things, or engaging. And like that thought of like, oh man, that person really has picked up things that we've done and they're capable of doing that, just means so much more than person that you have to write and spell out every way in which you need to do something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, when people say, how do I stand out? You can stand out by observing, right? Observing and doing. Those are the things. I think when you're looking to stand out, those are the times where you kind of can get caught up in yourself, right? Just do your job, just observe, think about what your boss needs. Those are the things that will absolutely work yourself out,
Awesome.
Yeah, that's so good.
Always good tips, Anne-Marie. Okay, Jen, throw the big one out.
So here's the big one. So what do you know now that you wish you knew then? So what do you know now at this point in your career that you wish you knew when you first started?
Yeah, hands down, I would say ask for help. I used to think that was a sure sign of weakness. I thought it was a sure sign that you did not know what you were doing. And I can remember this example so well when I was working at Colgate. My current athletic director, now at Yale, was the athletic director at Colgate at the time. And she was interim athletic director first. And I can so vividly remember standing in her office with her, and she really wanted the job. And she called the chairman of the board of trustees. And she had said to him, can you help me? Can you give me some advice about how I can get this job? What should my priorities be? Please help me walk through this. And I remember thinking, what on earth is she doing? He's going to think she doesn't know what she's doing.
Right.
And that was not how the conversation went. And he talked her through what he felt the old athletic director didn't do and where the priorities needed to be and how she could help Colgate and make it better and tie it into her leadership style and things of that nature. And she took those priorities and she ran with it. And she went back to him every now and then for advice, did the work, right? But sort of went to him and sought out help and sought his opinion out. And I remember thinking, I had this wrong this whole time. And when I sort of put that guard down about people thinking I didn't know what I was doing and asking for help and asking for advice and asking for thoughts and opinions, that really changed my outlook on things. And it made me be a better administrator because I was getting advice as opposed to just going in a closet trying to figure it out on myself. But yeah, I would say I wish I knew that a lot earlier than I did from that day in her office.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen you do that so many times because you never really talk about yourself. You always talk about our team. And when you say our team,
that.
And I've seen Vicky do it. Like, I feel like that's a real culture that you guys have created. It's this idea of like, it doesn't mean if you're going up for advice or down for advice. It's about like, I'm going to ask for help where I need to. Like if we need to jump in, you guys aren't beyond like, okay, we need to get something fixed on the field. We're going to be out there shoveling.
Let's do it.
Everybody's into it. And I just respect that so much. And I can see like how that has reflected in my experience working with you and how things have worked out. So what a great piece of advice.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think it's, there is that sort of thought behind it that if I kind of be a little bit vulnerable here, people think you don't know what you're doing. And it is just so the opposite. Because ultimately everyone does want to help. Right. When he took her call, he was like, I want to help you get this job. Right. You know what I mean? His thought was certainly not, what is, she doesn't deserve the job.
Right.
That's exactly right. And that really was this key moment for me.
Awesome.
It's funny. I just did some one-on-one interviews with my staff. I do it at the end of every month. And I always say to them at the end, what can I help you with? Like, are you feeling overwhelmed?
Love that.
What can I do to make your job easier? And how can we help each other? How can I help you in what you're doing?
I love
and
that.
How can we work together? And I feel like sometimes the new interns that come in, they're like, wait, the boss is asking me how she can help me.
Right.
And I'm like, listen, I'm here. We're a team. Like you said, that's like a big culture thing. Like you're a team. Like if you're going to jump in and roll the t-shirt and help with the on-court stuff and pick the music and that kind of stuff, like I feel like that sets a tone for your team that everybody is there to help each other.
You're so right.
And then
Nobody's
especially
better than somebody else,
And especially for when you have younger people that are like, are willing to come to you and say, hey, I really want to do well at this, but I want to be sure that I'm doing it the right way. You're like, wow, I respect the fact that you know
100%, yes.
where you can do things, where you can go for resources over not wanting to engage and thinking, okay, I know that the worst is someone that thinks they know everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It just it leads to nothing because they're just kind of spinning their wheels and you're like, well, what's this person trying to do or accomplish?
Yeah.
And they don't know their limitations, or they don't sometimes know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more work for everybody with somebody who thinks they know what they're doing, because you're picking up their slack and they're continuing to spin their wheels and you're doing just as much to try to get them out of it.
Yeah. Our jobs do not have to be this hard, right? No. You know what I mean? If we all work together, it's so true. Yeah.
It all picks up everything. Well, Anne-Marie, you know my feelings. I always enjoy talking to you and seeing you. So thank you so much for joining us and doing this.
This was great. I'm so glad it's my first time chatting with you, Anne-Marie.
I so appreciate you both. This is awesome. This was my best time of the day. So thank you both. This was a real honor to be with you both. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. This was great. Appreciate it.
For all our podcast listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us. Jen, throw out all of our ways of connecting.
Yeah, make sure you follow us on all your social channels. So it's at Ath Career Pod on Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever it's called, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and make sure you like us on all the podcast platforms as well. So, this is
great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
If you like the 5 Tips and Tricks podcast, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You can rate and review us, including questions that may be answered on future episodes. The 5 Tips and Tricks podcast for careers in athletics is part of Athletic Career Consulting. Check us out at www.athcareer.com. Don't forget to follow and like us on your top social media platforms.